People are craving in-person connection now more than ever, which is why live events are becoming increasingly popular. If you have ever felt the nudge to create an event, a retreat, a mastermind, really any kind of in-person experience, today I'm going to tell you everything I've learned about planning and selling out our live event, Powerhouse Women, and some of the big mistakes that I've made along the way that I want to help you avoid. I am so grateful that you're tuning in today, and by the time you hear this episode, I'm recording it a few weeks early, but by the time you hear this, we will have just wrapped up our third annual Powerhouse Women event. That is just crazy to say. I can remember talking with a girlfriend and planning the first event. I don't even know that I had fully committed to it. I remember saying well, maybe I could bring a couple of maybe 10, 20 women together, and here we are, just wrapped our third event, and we're planning for over 300 women. It's just crazy to see how this has taken off, and that the journey really only started a little over 2 years ago. So I'm excited to talk about today's conversation because I want you to get that everything you see on our social media, this podcast, everything you've watched evolve for the Powerhouse Women brand started just over 2 years ago. And I do believe that right now we're in this time in history where we're more digitally connected than ever. Social media, even podcasts. It's crazy to see how many people listen to this show internationally. It's just crazy to me. I've received messages from people in Africa, in Asia, just saying that they listen to the show, which I just don't think I will ever get over that. But as connected as we are, I think it also creates this sense of isolation because we don't have to step outside our behind our computer screens or phones. We're not connecting in person as much because we don't have to. And in a way, it's causing a lot of people to feel lonelier than ever before. And I'm a firm believer that there are more people craving the kind of connection and just growth, personal, professional growth that a live event can offer. I think there's more people craving that than the number of events currently offered. So I know something that almost stopped me was this feeling that there were already people doing events. The space was too saturated. And if you've ever caught yourself thinking that or doubting that the feeling you have, the calling you feel to create something, a live event experience, a retreat, that there's no space for you, I want you to know, even if other people are doing something similar, you are feeling called to create your event, your mastermind, your retreat, or your workshop. You're feeling that call because someone needs to hear the message from you, not from anyone else. They need to hear it from you. And so it's really important to know that even the people in the space hosting events, we can never host all of the events. There is still so much room for others to enter this space and to offer experiences and training and content to a community of people who really want and need it. So I'm excited to just share a little bit of, I think I'm going to share in two ways. Obviously, some of the things that have helped us really grow the Powerhouse Women event and even some of the smaller things that we've done. I think it's all kind of the same. But also, I really want to hone in on the fact that hosting an event does not have to be just your passion project. I am a big believer that events can be equally transformational. Transformational and profitable. That you can absolutely turn an event into a huge part of your business and your revenue stream, and you shouldn't feel ashamed for doing so. So I'm going to share today more from the side of how we've taken this little idea, this feeling, that maybe I wanted to put women in a room and have the same conversations that we had in the Powerhouse Women book, that we wanted to remind women that they're not meant to do this alone, and give them the tools and the resources to get out of their own way and into action around their ideas. When I had that idea, I wasn't thinking about it as a business, but now to see what we've been able to create and share with you some of the early on mistakes that I made that could have prevented us from making it a business. But no matter how big or small your idea is, I believe that it absolutely can be something that is also profitable. And I believe that you deserve to be abundantly compensated for providing value like that for the world. So I'm going to break this down kind of into a few different sections and talk to you from the standpoint of really the business of events, and talk to you about some of the things that early on really scared me, or my biggest fear was, will I lose money? Will no one show up? Will people come but then feel like they didn't get the value that they paid for? Those were all of my biggest fears in the beginning. So if you've already hosted events, or if you're thinking about hosting some kind of a live experience, you might be feeling that same way too. And I'm going to share with you just some of the things that really made a difference, not only in creating the kind of experience that absolutely provided value, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on the financial side of things and how I set us up to make sure that I wasn't ever trying to sell tickets out of fear, right? A space of fear, or wasn't feeling, what do I want to say? I'm lost for the word. I wasn't, trying to fill this event from a stressed place. I created the budget and just everything around the event in a way that the energy around it could just be really focused on the intention. So that's actually the first place that I want to start. Is I'm just going to touch briefly on this, but your job as the event creator, the most important job and the most important question you can ask yourself before you ever start to plan is, what is your intention for the event? How do you want people to feel when they walk away from this live experience? And if you hold true to that intention, you will start to make decisions in alignment with it. You want to always come back to that intention before you make any decision at all, whether it be for your venue, your vendors, anything at all that has a part in your event experience. You want to make those decisions based on what will directly impact that outcome. How do you want people to feel when they leave? And what is your intention for hosting this live experience in the first place? So that's a really, really important question to ask, because obviously that's going to affect, I think of it literally just like a wedding, planning a wedding. What's important to you? Is having great food, great music, is a great atmosphere, or a beautiful location? Are those what will ultimately fulfill your vision that you want, for your wedding or live event? It really is kind of the same. I laughed thinking about that because that was exactly what my mindset was going into planning our wedding. Was there were certain things that were important to me and that I knew would have my guests have a certain kind of experience. And then there were certain things that just weren't as important, or no one would really remember, almost. Now I've been married for 9 years and I barely remember what my flowers looked like. So there were certain things that were important to me and certain things that weren't. And those are the things that got priority in my budget. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the budget. And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit with the second piece, which is how do you go about your launch plan and your strategy to sell out the event, because they're kind of tied together. Meaning when you're planning a live event, you're having to come up with, number of people that you think will attend, oftentimes before you've ever sold a single ticket. Now, for our event for Powerhouse Women, now, we have data and we have history to show, the growth that we're experiencing. And, we know that if 200 women came last year, we can at least plan on 200 women coming again the following year. The goal is to grow it, but we have some numbers and a benchmark to work with. And I remember that first year, I was like, I have no clue. I have no idea how many people will actually show up. And so before I ever set my budget, before I ever started to formulate how much space I needed or what the day was going to include, I really sat with who is this for? And how many women do I know who would be willing to share it with maybe 5 of their friends, right? So when I really sat with that question, rather than thinking about, okay, if my goal is to sell 100 tickets, that was my goal the first year, very first Powerhouse Women event, then it felt daunting to think about, okay, do I even know 100 people? I mean, yes, I do. I casually know at least 100 people. And I actually knew far less people back then than I do now that I've been networking more. But it just felt daunting. How do I get 100 people to want to come to this thing? My social media following was actually really small back then. We didn't even have a social media for Powerhouse Women or an email list, if you can imagine. So we were starting at basically like nothing. So what I did one day is I sat down and I made a list of 20 of my friends who I just knew would support me in any way that I needed. And I was like, you know what? Okay, if each of these women brought 5 friends, that would be 100 people. Now, of course, it never works out perfect math, but just the reassurance that it gave me that, okay, if I can enroll the power of my community in helping to share this vision, it's not all me. Now, even back then, we didn't have the motto, we're not meant to do this alone, but this is like truly where it started to be born, because I knew that if this room would be full of 100 women who were hungry to learn and grow and connect with each other, those women would not just be women that I knew. So once I had my, and I thought that was a pretty conservative number. It was a little bit of a stretch because I hadn't done it before. I didn't know if that would really be possible. However, I took that number and cut it in half. And I said, okay, if I'm going to charge, whatever ticket price, so take whatever amount you feel is really perfect for the experience you're creating. You can do research into similar events and retreats and just kind of see where the market price is for that. Obviously, your budget is going to be kind of a fluctuating number, but once I figured the ticket price that I wanted to sell my tickets at, I took and based my budget off of, 50% of my goal number of attendees. So, okay, if I want to fill the room with 100 women, but let's say only 50 come, then I'm going to base my budget on 50, because that way, as I get closer to my real goal number, I'm not stressed about covering my costs. And then what I did was I took, I played around a little bit with the ticket price to get my profits to where I knew about they needed to be in order to pay for the space and, some of the snacks and food. And then I finally found kind of a place that felt really good that I could work with that amount of budget. And then what I did was I created tiers where I would increase my budget once I passed a certain number of ticket sales. So there were like benchmarks along the way. Okay, when I hit 50, then I'm going to be able to invest in this element. Or when we hit 75, then okay, now I can allocate a little bit more money to the design budget. And that has always worked really well for me. Even, heading in, I know you're listening to this as the event has already passed, but right now I'm about 4 weeks out from the event, and as our final ticket sales are coming in, I'm now starting to allocate a little bit more money to the places in my budget that actually affect the overall intended outcome, kind of like I started out talking about. So that's a really good way to do it. And then I think it's also important to know that you want to start with having profit in mind. Don't just set your budget to break even, because oftentimes what I find is if you shoot for breaking even, you're going to fall below that and probably lose some money. And if you plan from the start with a little bit of profit in mind, even if it's a nominal amount, then you're more likely to start right away from year one turning a profit. And that's huge. Not many events do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit then about how do you actually sell the event, especially if you are in a position like I was that first year and you don't have a big audience. This is actually a great tip no matter what you're selling. If you are still listening to this episode and you never dream of doing your own live event, but maybe there's something else you really want to drive traffic to or get in front of people, this is actually a tip that will help you regardless. And that is to think of creative ways to keep your event or whatever you're launching in front of people. without constantly just saying, buy a ticket, come to my event. We all are on social media and are being bombarded by people selling things all day long. And look, I am all about someone hustling to make their dreams come true. However, just notice how you kind of start to tune out those kind of posts. So you want to be that person who stands out and who has something exciting and different, something that makes someone go, okay, well, I'm going to click on this post. I'm actually going to read the content because what is this about? Or they're going to open your email. You want to really think about how do you almost take every element that the event entails, and then how do you chop it up into little tiny things that you can announce or launch throughout the ticket sales process. So a couple of examples that we did with the first ever Powerhouse Women event is I did a Facebook Live with all of our event speakers. I think I had maybe like 5 or 6 women who spoke at the event that first year. And I scheduled an individual Facebook Live with each of them. So this accomplished a couple of things. Number one, it gave me an announcement to make about the event and brought it back to people's awareness. Number two, we got to tease a little bit of the value that we were going to deliver at the event. So I didn't just go on Facebook Live and say, hey, here's another event speaker. We actually talked a little bit about the topic that they would go over. And then it also gave us exposure to that person's audience. So on social media, whether it's a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, if you're collaborating with someone else, you have the opportunity to kind of pull eyeballs from their community as well. And if it's people who like to follow that person and their content, you never know. There was actually a woman who spoke at our first event that I didn't choose her because she had a large social media following. She just happened to have one. And a good number of people came to the event because they were excited to hear her speak. She didn't do a ton of speaking engagements, so it was special that she was coming and willing to speak at Powerhouse Women. And it actually drew quite a few people who were not already in my network to come to the event and to buy tickets. Another thing that we have done pretty successfully is we'll do giveaways at different points in the event sales process. So, we do things, of course, like the traditional things like an early bird ticket price, different times throughout the year that things expire or certain prices expire. But one of my favorite ways to draw attention is to do some kind of a giveaway associated with the event. And this is something that I've really watched my friend James Patrick, who hosts an event called Fitposium here in Phoenix. I've watched him do really, really well, and I've really taken a page from his book. Is he'll do, so his is like a fitness-focused conference, and he has connections with different magazines and editors. And so a lot of times he'll say, hey, we have a casting opportunity, for someone to be featured in a fitness magazine. And it's only going to be offered to people who are registered for the event by this date. And so I obviously don't have the same audience. We're not, trying to get people on fitness magazines, but I've just looked at, okay, where can I create something that's added value? It's higher perceived value in the eyes of our audience because it shows that we have all these cool opportunities for being a part of our community. But it's something that's only going to be available to people who have taken that leap and actually purchased their ticket. So we've done different giveaways with sponsors. We had one this year with one of our sponsors for pajamas and Prosecco, where we gave away this cute pajama set. We have done things like given away a staycation for coming and, having a girls' weekend with your girlfriends around Powerhouse Women. And usually, when we're thinking about these things, one of the prerequisites to enter is that they have to have their event ticket. So again, you don't have to even invest a ton of money. A lot of times you can do that through partnerships or sponsorships and offer your attendees a fun way to win something if they kind of get off the fence and jump and purchase their ticket. So those are just a couple of ways that we've kept the event in front of people's eyes without constantly having to say, buy your ticket, come to the event. And then, okay, I want to wrap this up with probably a part that's going to be most valuable to you, which is the mistakes. I have made a ton of mistakes along the way. This is not even going to cover the surface, but I tried to think about the ones that would be most valuable to you and also really tie in with this conversation around, yes, you absolutely can make your event profitable. And here are just some of my faves. Okay, so mistakes that I've made. Number one, not reading contracts clearly. This can go, this is especially true when it comes to venue agreements. What is included? What's not included? Are there extra charges for things? I've actually done this the last 2 years where I should have negotiated a little bit more to make the contract a little bit more favorable for us. And I didn't. I just agreed to it. And, it hasn't been anything like a huge financial mishap or anything like that. But even just things like, and I don't want to paint venue owners as bad people, but they're a business too. So they're looking for where they can make money. And, just little hidden fees or per person charges that, they kind of snuck in there that I didn't ask about before signing the contract. So those are things that, who knows, could have saved, a couple $100 or could have made a difference in my bottom line. And then this last year, so 2018, planning for 2019, I knew that I was going to pre-sell my tickets for the event. And I kind of just thought that I needed to already have my venue picked out, which truthfully, to pre-sell a ticket for an event a year away, it wasn't necessary that I already had the event locked or the venue locked in. And I actually committed to a venue too soon, which ended up being too small. And I had to make a change. And there was a cost for breaking that contract. Now, again, lesson learned. And I was able to be resourceful, and I would have basically had to walk away from $2,500, which, I'm still at the stage where that's not a teeny amount of money to me. So what I did is I thought, okay, so they already have my money, they already have my deposit. What if I turn this into a different event? And so what I ended up doing is turning that deposit into a podcast launch party. So it wasn't a total waste. I was going to be out the money anyway, so why not have an epic party? But it wasn't $2,500 that I was planning to spend, so definitely learned from that mistake that I booked the venue too early before I knew the capacity that I truly needed. So just be careful when you're reading contracts, what are the cancellation deadlines? A lot of times, it'll be a tiered structure where if you cancel by a certain date, you get X number of dollars from your deposit back, et cetera. So just make sure to read all that stuff really, really carefully before signing. Okay, the second thing, and this is huge. This is something that I really have learned and have come to a really powerful stance about, and that is giving discounts. So I have seen this a lot with just other events that I've attended or supported, and I've seen where, maybe the event organizers have planned for a certain number of attendees, and then the tickets are not selling as fast as they had planned, or they're getting nervous. Maybe their ticket price was too high. And at the last hour or the last few weeks, they start to offer pretty substantial discounts or giving away tickets for free. And what happens when you do that is it actually has almost a backfire effect, and it devalues what it is that you are offering. It can actually kind of piss off the people who paid full price for their ticket to see that now a couple weeks out you're offering $100 discount, or you're doing something substantial when a few weeks ago, because they planned in advance, they actually paid more. Now, this isn't to say that you can't do an early bird special and that price cuts off at a certain point. We actually do that with the Powerhouse Women event, and that can be a really powerful way to get people into action early, knowing that price will expire by a certain point. But it's really important to hold to the price increase once the price goes up. Because if you start to kind of train people that your price goes up by $50, but then just wait because they'll have some kind of a coupon that's going to give you another $50 off. It almost trains people to be lazy or to expect discounts, and like I said, can actually lead to devaluing your offering in people's minds. And it's not like they're consciously thinking that. It's just a very subconscious perception, and that's absolutely not what you want. This wasn't a mistake that we made, in huge ways. This is more something I've learned just from observing and helping other people plan their events. But we did, for the first 2 years, offer just some little $25 discount codes here and there. And this year, I've actually experimented with doing none. And let me tell you, it actually made me super uncomfortable because I'm a giver and I'm a people pleaser. So when people are like, hey, is there a discount code? I want to be like, oh, yes, here you go. However, I also know that a big focus of what we want for women, again, this goes back to the intention. So for you, maybe giving a discount is absolutely in line with what you're offering and what your intention is. But my intention is to have women be a little bit uncomfortable, is to have women or give them an opportunity to grow. And if it's uncomfortable for them to invest in themselves, and then I kind of play into that and give them a discount and almost, make it less uncomfortable. Now, hold on, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm actually doing them a disservice in accordance with the intention that we have set. Because investing in a live event or in a personal growth experience of any kind should feel like a stretch. Some of the biggest growth I've experienced in my life has come from investing in something that made me uncomfortable because of the amount that I was putting toward it. And it made me level up. It made me see myself in a different way. It made me take myself and my ideas more seriously. And so I really sat with that, because that's a lesson I've learned from my own experience this last year. And I really implemented it in this year's Powerhouse Women event. And I mean, are there probably women who didn't come because there wasn't a coupon code? Maybe. There really might have been. But I also ask myself, okay, I don't actually know if our event is really for women who are just looking for, a low price or a discount. Not to say that they couldn't get something from it. I really want you to hear my heart. Our experience is more powerful when it's a room full of women who get the value of investing in themselves and who are willing to do that even if it scares the bleep out of them. So that was something that was really kind of hard for me to make that decision this year. But I also feel like, going back to point number one, what's in alignment with my intention, not giving a discount is absolutely in line with what I believe is going to be the best for the women that I want to serve. The other thing, and I'll just kind of finish up with this point on the whole discount thing, is that it's been really powerful for me this year to invest in other women's ideas at full price. Meaning, and this is not at all to say like anyone owes me something, but when someone asks for a discount, they're asking for a discount on something I pour my life, a year of my life into planning. And of course, people are not asking to be rude or to say that they don't appreciate that. But I started to think about it differently now that I'm on the side of pouring a year of my life into planning something that, well, what's my mindset when maybe a girlfriend has a digital course or, something where I expect that I'll get it for free or for a discount, when the best thing I can do to support her is show up and buy her shit for full price. So that's just something else that I've really learned and been checking my own heart on this year. And I really say that with so much love because you guys know I'm just sharing my own experience, the things I'm learning, the mistakes that I'm making. And it's something to think about, especially if we as women are creating products and services that we hope people will invest in. I think as a business owner, one of the most powerful things we can do is actually invest in other people's things for full price because it's just going to come back and repay us in huge ways. Instead of offering discounts, something we've done is thought about adding additional value via bonuses. So you can create additional little bonuses depending on your event. It could be something like they get a free call with you, or they get insider access to something if they purchase by a certain date. So that's something else to think about, kind of on the flip side of instead of discounting the price, how can you add even more value on top if they purchase by a certain date? So that's actually a great other little tip. Again, whether you're planning a live event or whether you are selling anything, really. Okay, and the last one, mistakes that I've made. This is like the one that I learned the biggest lesson from going from year 1 to 2. And that is, so this is more specific to if you have a live event or a workshop, a retreat, a mastermind. It was not having anything to offer people as a next step. So what I mean by this is I remember that first year being like, I hate going to events where they're just trying to sell me something else. And maybe you've had that experience too, where you go to an event and it's really kind of just a thinly veiled excuse to sell you something else. And I think I let that get in my way, and I didn't want it to come off as though that was my intention. So I remember just so awkwardly at the end of the first year Powerhouse Women being like, I just kind of like waved. I was like, okay, well, see you guys later. And here we were. We had just invited women into this conversation about what was possible for them and, opened up this big conversation about how, we're not meant to do this alone. And then there was nothing for the woman sitting in the audience who said, okay, I believe this. I know that I can do it, but I need help. What do I do next? And so I want you to know that the people coming to your live experiences are probably coming there because something that you're offering resonates with them, because they want to learn from what you and your speakers have to offer. And if you're going to open a conversation and invite people into, looking at what's possible for them, no matter what kind of event you're doing, you want to think about, okay, how do you truly support them coming out of that live experience? And I bet if you really look at it from that point, what is best for them, what's going to set them up to really have success, it would be some kind of a continued conversation. Now, of course, not everyone will want to step into that next conversation. Some people will just love coming to your event or your workshop and getting what is available that day. But I remember really getting this lesson for myself when we were going into planning year 2 of the event. And I had women say to me, gosh, I'm just so excited. I can't wait to come back because I loved the first event. And I was so inspired, so motivated to go and put some work into my big idea. And then life set in and I got busy or I got scared. And now I'm kind of exactly where I was last year. I need to come back and get re-inspired. And now, was I glad that they were coming back? Of course, but in my mind, that let me know that I had failed them. I had failed them because of what I said my intention was for the event, which was to help women get out of their own way and into action around their big ideas. So what I heard was, okay, women weren't actually fully getting out of their own way. They weren't staying in action. So what can I provide to support them in doing that? And so I want you to think about this. If you have that same resistance that I had to making an offer or creating a program, a membership community, whatever it is, if you have the same resistance that I did, I want you to think about it from that way, that it's a disservice to your event attendees if there's not a way for them, for those who want to continue in this conversation with you after the fact. And yes, does this absolutely also create other profit streams for your event by having a mastermind, a coaching program, a course that they can purchase? Yes. But I know you and I know your heart, and that's not the first reason you would create something. I know that you want to create value. And so, yes, you absolutely should create something for people to step into. And the added bonus is that it's a great way to further monetize this creative process of planning an event and to further add on the value that you're already giving people. So, all right, that was a lot. I know that, there's honestly so much more than I could share. I just tried to pick the things that if I could go back and someone could tell me what to avoid, those things would have really, really helped me. And I just want to remind you that if you feel called to create some kind of a live experience, a workshop, a mastermind, a retreat, that it just is a sign that people need it. It's a sign that they need you to step up and play big. And this is a great opportunity to tell you about something you might have already seen, but I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. I'm teaming up with Lori Harder, who, if you don't already listen to her podcast, it is amazing. It's a top podcast called Earn Your Happy. She's the founder of the Bliss Project. Her events alone have generated millions of dollars in revenue. And I say that not to impress you, but actually just to share that, she has a very different perspective than I do. We built our events differently, which is a beautiful thing, but we've both been able to generate profit through our events. Me over the last 2 years, hers over the last 7, and we both have it in our hearts to pay it forward and empower the next generation of women who are going to lead this kind of work. So we're putting together a 5-day in-person, very hands-on immersive training that is going to be it's really created to teach and prepare you to be a confident speaker, to facilitate events that are transformational. There it goes. I can't say that word. I keep tripping over it. Events that are transformational and also create events that are profitable. And honestly, you guys, this is exactly what I wish I would have had 3 years ago. I'll just give you the link so you can go and check it out for yourself. And then feel free to reach out to me and ask if you have questions. We're actually going to have Lori on the podcast where we'll get to share a lot more about this event specifically. But we want you to know that we created it exactly for women like you who know that they are feeling called to create a space for other people to grow, and you're just not really sure how to do it, how to make it profitable, or you doubt that it can actually become a business. So we're literally going to open both of our entire businesses and share everything with you. There's literally no question you cannot ask us. And you can go to Event Love, and it's love spelled L-U-V, eventlove.com to learn more. And we're going to limit this to a really intimate group just because we want to create that kind of experience where we can be very hands-on with you. So go to eventlove.com, learn about it, get your questions answered, and secure your spot if you want to join us.